Hey everyone, I'm Chef Tom and welcome to my workbench. I'm a retro computer enthusiast. I'm trying to save as many of these old 8-bit computers as I can for future generations. This week, we're taking a second look at my Commodore 16, yes, the one that has no working CPU, and we're going to give it a little upgrade. Let's get to the bench. Last we saw this C16, it had no CPU, and I scavenged the one out of my plus 4 to make it work. So I've ordered a kit that allows me to use a 6510 in place of the 8501. It requires a kernel mod, which thankfully it includes, and is a nearly plug-and-play solution. It does feel weird to say plug-and-play about a Commodore, but it works. I picked up some pulled chips for spares, and I hope they're not fake. The first one is a 6510 made in the 49th week of 83, and the pins aren't in grape shape, so I'll have to be careful with those. The second is a 6510 made in the 22nd week of 84. And then for the 64K RAM upgrade, I have a tube of 41464 32K by 8-bit RAM chips. This, along with some reversible rewiring, should give us a very capable C16. To get into the C16, there are just 3 screws on the bottom, and then it tilts back open. I've only got 1 screw in here right now from working on it earlier. And that's also why the RF shielding isn't held down right either. The 8501 to 6510 adapter is designed to slot right into the existing socket for the CPU. You need a modified kernel ROM, which comes with the kit, because the chips have some differences in their pinouts and functions. Without any more modifications, I'll lose the dataset functionality with this modified ROM, but for me that won't be a problem. It is possible to overcome this, but I'm not going to worry about it. The adapter board in the kit has really thick posts for the pins, and it's going to be a little tough to get into this old low-quality single wipe socket, but I think we can make it fit with a little bit of pressure. It's in there, but it sits pretty high up. I think we'll be okay, though. Next, we have to install the modified kernel ROM, which is just a direct swap for the original one at U4. I'll save that and the other 6510 processor as spares for the future. Let's get this hooked up to the RetroTink and see what we get. Connect the audio cable and the power. And well, that's a good start. Or not. The image isn't particularly clear, and it seems like the RetroTink isn't able to keep a lock on the sync signal. To be fair, this thing's never had good video output, so maybe that's just an effect of moving it to the RetroTink instead of going straight composite into the TV now. But it is booting and reading all 12K free of RAM, so for now we'll move on to installing the RAM upgrade, then come back to the video issues after that. Like I said earlier, the RAM upgrade needs a pair of 41464 chips. Thankfully, from doing the troubleshooting in part 1, I already socketed these chips, so this should be a pretty easy swap. We need to tie address lines 14 and 15 to these 74LS157 multiplexers. In the plus 4, and I assume the 264, they're already wired up, but in the C16 they're just tied to plus 5 volts to keep them from floating. Most of the write-ups that I've read online say to scratch traces on the board and run some bodge wires underneath. That's pretty destructive though, for a fairly simple mod. And since I already have these socketed and I have plenty of spare multiplexers, I'm going to add a pin header for addresses 14 and 15 and run it directly over to the legs pulled out from the chip. I'm going to check that these vias here are those 2 address lines, then we can remove the solder and just put some right angle headers. Okay, so address 14 is there, address 15 is there. The holes in the vias are the right size and space to put a 2-pin right angle header in here, and it's completely trivial. I don't think it matters which pin goes to which chip, since they're just address lines, and the RAM doesn't care which is which as long as it's consistent.
Eventually.
I learned in this process that crimping connectors is not as easy as it looks, and I just decided not to film me getting extremely frustrated with all of that. So here we are after the fact. We'll route the wires around the board, and to where the multiplexer's pins are going to be that we've pulled out. Since I've got spares of all of these multiplexers, I'm just going to solder straight to the pins and call it a day. And let's see if we have 64K. Let's see what we get. I think I messed something up. Definitely messed something up.
2 hours later.
So after a lot of off-camera testing, mainly changing around the RAM chips and swapping out for unmodified multiplexers, something finally caught my eye. Hiding right there in U5 was a pin for the dip socket that wasn't soldered in. I'm not sure why it would work fine with 16K but fail with 64, unless Commodore did something funky with the multiplexing, and I just haven't had the energy to dig into the schematic and figure that out. So, a quick round of desolder that socket, and back to testing. Now, I have 64K of RAM available, but I still can't figure out what's up with the video output. This is on composite, so it's not losing sync on the RetroTink, but that still means I can't do direct capture to the computer yet. I've tried adjusting all the pots I can find, the 2 in the RF modulator and the 1 by the clock crystal, but all they do is change the pattern of the distortion. I haven't been able to remove it completely yet. So if you've got any ideas on what I can do about that, I'd love to see them in the comments below. Remember when I said that stack wasn't too tall? Well, it is. The RF shield, which is also the heatsink for the TED chip, is bulging here and not making contact with the TED, so I'm going to remove the socket and solder the adapter straight to the board. I'm not going to solder the tabs back on because that's really annoying, but I will bend them to make sure there's contact and hold everything in place. Then into the case, a few screws, some thermal paste for the TED chip, add a heatsink, connect the keyboard, the LED, and we can close it up. I'm going to run the diagnostics for a while and just make sure everything is working, but I think we have successfully fixed and upgraded this C16, and I'm pretty happy about it. So just a last minute catch as I was about to publish this. You can see the kernel ROM is labeled bad, but that's because I'm using the modified ROM to use the 6510. That's not actually a bad ROM. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and press that subscribe button in the center of the screen. I've also got a couple other videos I think you might enjoy.